Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Meenu Sehajpal, Assistant Professor in Economics from University Institute of Legal Studies, Punjab University, Chandigarh. Today we are going to talk on module ISLM model under the paper Managerial Economics. After completing this module, the students will be able to understand the concept of goods market, the concept of IS curve, the concept of money market, the concept of LM curve. Introduction. ISLM curves are the standard tools of economic analysis, which were developed subsequently to and in response to the then general theory put forward by Keynes in the year 1936. The chief architect of these curves is Professor Hicks, who gave these curves in his book Mr. Keynes and Classics in the year 1937. Professor Hansen popularized these curves, so these curves are also called as Hicks-Hansen analysis. This model is also called as neoclassical synthesis. These curves were developed because of the shortcomings in the Keynesian theory. Therefore, to understand the determination of the ISLM curves, it is essential to understand the Keynesian system and the shortcomings in the same. In the Keynesian system, in a two-sector model in the short run, the necessary condition for equilibrium is that aggregate demand must be equal to aggregate supply. That is, in equilibrium, AD is equal to AS. Aggregate demand is determined by consumption and investment in a two-sector model, and aggregate supply is determined by consumption and savings. Therefore, in equilibrium, if aggregate demand or AD is equal to aggregate supply or AS, and if aggregate demand is equal to C plus I or consumption plus investment, and if aggregate supply is equal to consumption plus savings, then in equilibrium C plus I is equal to C plus S, or consumption plus investment is equal to consumption plus savings, or in equilibrium I is equal to S, or investment is equal to savings. Since savings are a function of income and investment is a function of rate of interest, therefore the graphic determination of the equilibrium must include the rate of interest as one of the variables. However, in the Keynesian system, the graphic determination of equilibrium simply assumes the rate of interest and no actual determination of the same takes place. This became a major criticism of his theory, and subsequently it led to the development of IS curves. Likewise, in the Keynesian money market, the condition for equilibrium is that there should be equality between demand for money or DM and supply of money or SM. Demand for money is a function of income and rate of interest. The supply of money is determined exogenously. The graphic determination of the equilibrium in the money market is indeterminate, as it does not include income as one of the variables. This shortcoming of the Keynesian system led to the development of LM curves. Assumptions. There are two basic assumptions. These are given below. We assume a hypothetical economy which is divided into three markets. These are goods market, money market, and labor market. These markets are separate. Goods market determines the equilibrium of goods, money market determines the equilibrium of money, and labor market determines the equilibrium of labor. The second assumption is two-sector model. Two-sector model implies that the economy under consideration is a closed economy, so there is no foreign sector. It also implies that there is no government sector also. The model. IS schedule implies investment and saving schedule. It represents equilibrium in the goods market or in the real market. IS schedule is the locus of the points of rate of interest and the levels of income. LM schedule implies demand for money and supply of money, and it represents equilibrium in the money market. Derivation of IS schedule. The derivation of the IS schedule is explained in figure 4.1. In the part B of the figure, we are measuring investment on OX axis and savings on OY axis. The 45-degree line shows the points of equality between savings and investment. When the savings are OS 0, then the level of investment in the economy is OI 0. As the saving increases to OS 1, the level of investment increases to OI 1. Part A of the figure shows investment on OX axis and rate of interest on OY axis. If the market rate of interest is OR 0, then the level of investment OI 0 can be plotted down in part A from the values of investment in the upper part B. Likewise, the values can also be plotted for OR1, level of rate of interest. It shows the inverse relationship between investment and rate of interest. Part C shows the relationship between savings and income, as savings are an increasing function of the income. At OS 0 level of savings, the corresponding level of income is OY 0. As income increases, the level of savings also increase. The values of income given in part C can be plotted down in part D of the figure. Part D measures income on OX axis and rate of interest on OY axis. By joining the OY0 level of income at OR0 level of rate of interest, we get point A, which is the first point of the IS curve. Likewise, we can get point B of the IS curve. By joining A and B points, we get the IS curve. This curve is sloping downwards from left to right. All the points on the IS schedule show equilibrium in the goods market. All the points above or below the IS curve are the points of disequilibrium. In part D of the figure 4.1, any point above A, say C, shows disequilibrium. At this point C, at the same rate of interest, that is OR0, the level of income increases from OY0 to OY1. Since the rate of interest is the same, therefore the level of investment is also the same. But since the level of income increases, therefore the level of savings also increase. So at point C, the level of savings is more than the level of investment. Likewise, any point below A shows excess of investment over savings. Properties of IS schedule. The different properties of IS schedule are: IS schedule is the locus of different combinations of rate of interest and the levels of income, which ensures equilibrium in the goods market. The IS schedule is different from the usual type of curves, which represents a functional relationship between the two variables. IS schedule simply shows the combination of two variables and there is no functional relationship between the two. IS schedule is negatively sloped. The negative slope of the curve is implied in the definition of the curve and in the relationship between the underlying variables. When the rate of interest is decreased, the level of investment increases. The increase in the level of investment raises the level of income in the economy through the principle of multiplier. Likewise, when the level of rate of interest is increased, investment decreases in the economy, which in turn decreases the level of income. Thus, indirect but inverse relationship between rate of interest and the level of income is based upon the relationship between the underlying functions. Whenever the underlying functions will shift, IS schedule will also undergo a shift. The slope of the IS schedule depends upon the slope of the underlying functions. That is, the slope of the IS schedule depends upon interest elasticity of the investment function and marginal propensity to save. Derivation of LM schedule. LM schedule represents the equilibrium in the money market. In the Keynesian money market, equilibrium rate of interest is determined while assuming it at some level of income. However, in the LM model, the equilibrium in the money market is determined along with the simultaneous determination of the rate of interest and income. For equilibrium in the money market, supply of money or SM must be equal to the demand for money or DM. Supply of money is exogenously determined by the central bank of the economy. Money is demanded for three main reasons: transaction, precautionary, and speculative activities. Demand for money for transaction and precautionary purpose are dependent upon the level of income, and the demand for money for speculative purpose is dependent upon rate of interest. The derivation of the LM curve is shown in figure 4.2, has four parts: A, B, C, and D. Part A measures speculative demand for money, which is a function of rate of interest. On OY axis, we are measuring rate of interest, and on OX axis, we are measuring speculative demand for money. There is inverse relationship between the two. When the rate of interest is high at OR 0 level, then the speculative demand for money is low at OSP 0. As the rate of interest decreases to OR 1 level, the demand for money for speculative purpose increases to OSP 1. Part B explains total supply of money, which is exogenously determined. The whole of the supply of money is divided between transaction and speculative demand for money, and nothing is saved. Part C shows the demand for money for transaction purpose. According to Keynes, demand for money for transaction purpose is an increasing function of income, which implies that whenever income of the consumer increases, the demand for transaction purpose also increases. As per Keynes, demand for money for transaction purpose TRD is a fixed proportion K of income. As per Keynes, demand for money for transaction purpose TRD is a fixed proportion K of income Y, that is, TRD is equal to K times Y. Here, we have assumed K to be 0.5, which implies that the households keep half of their income for carrying out day-to-day transactions. So, a line OZ is drawn at an angle of 45 degrees as it divides the whole space into two equal zones, that is, vertical and horizontal distances from the line are the same. We start from part C. At a given level of income, that is at OY0 income, the transaction demand for money is OTR 0. When the transaction demand is OTR 0, then part B shows that the speculative demand for money is OSP 0. Since the demand for money for speculative purpose has an inverse relationship with rate of interest, therefore, when the speculative demand is OSP 0, then the rate of interest is high at OR0 in part A. Part D shows the LM curve, which is drawn by extending the OR0 level of rate of interest from part A of the figure and OY0 level of income from part C of the figure. This gives us the first point of LM curve, point A. Likewise, we can get the second point, point B, to draw LM curve. By joining A and B points, we get the LM curve. Any point on this curve shows the equilibrium in money market. Any point above or below this curve shows disequilibrium in money market. Properties of LM curve. The properties of LM curve are, firstly, LM curve shows equilibrium in the money market. It is the locus of the points of different combinations of rate of interest and the levels of income, which ensures equilibrium in the money market. Secondly, LM curve is different from the usual curves. The usual curves gives the functional relationship between two variables. For example, the demand for money curve shows the functional relationship between demand for money and rate of interest. But the LM curve just gives the combinations of two variables, rate of interest and income, without establishing any functional relationship between the two. Thirdly, LM schedule is positively sloped. Positive slope implies when one variable increases, the other variable must increase. When the income of the consumer increases, the transaction demand for money increases. Since both transaction and speculative demand for money make the supply of money which is constant, therefore this causes a decline in the speculative demand for money. When the speculative demand for money decreases, then because of the inverse relationship between speculative demand for money and rate of interest, the market rate of interest increases. Thus, an increase in the income causes an increase in the rate of interest and vice versa. LM schedule is drawn with respect to a given money supply. Whenever there is any change in the money supply, the LM curve also undergoes a change. Supply of money shifts whenever there is any increase in nominal prices or price level decreases. Slope of the LM schedule will depend upon the slope of the underlying functions, that is, demand for money for speculative purpose and demand for money for transaction purpose. Corresponding to the flatter part of the demand for money for speculative purpose curve, there is also flatter part of the LM schedule. After that, the LM schedule is upward sloping. In figure 4.3, part A shows the LM schedule and part B shows the demand for money for speculative purpose curve. The flatter part of the demand for money for speculative purpose curve starts from A. This is because of the liquidity trap, as discussed in the Keynesian theory. Corresponding to this flatter part, LM schedule also has a flatter part BC. After that, the LM curve is upward sloping. Simultaneous equilibrium in the goods and money market. Through the IS curve, we determine the equilibrium level of income, which shows equilibrium in the goods market. Through the LM curve, we determine the equilibrium level of rate of interest in the money market. For the simultaneous determination of the income and the rate of interest, we superimpose both IS and LM curves. This also gives us the equilibrium in the goods and money market. This is explained in figure 4.4. On OX axis, we are measuring income level, and on OY axis, we are measuring rate of interest. IS and LM curves are shown in the graph. Equilibrium is attained at a point where both the curves intersect each other. Point E shows equilibrium. At this point, aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, and supply of money is equal to demand for money. OY0 and OR0 are the equilibrium levels of income and rate of interest. Properties of simultaneous equilibrium. Some of the properties of the simultaneous equilibrium in the goods and money market are: firstly, it is a unique equilibrium. Once equilibrium is attained, it will be a unique equilibrium. Any other combinations either lead to a disequilibrium in both or in at least one market. In figure 4.4, initially the simultaneous equilibrium is attained at point E. If the economy is moved to point B on the IS curve, the goods market is in equilibrium but the money market is in disequilibrium. Likewise, if the economy is moved to point C, where the money market is in equilibrium but the goods market is in disequilibrium. Thus, there is a unique equilibrium only at point E. Secondly, it is a stable equilibrium. The equilibrium attained through IS-LM curve is a stable equilibrium, as once disturbed it would be restored. Shifts in the simultaneous equilibrium. Shifts in the simultaneous equilibrium will be caused by the shifts in either IS curve or LM curve or in both the curves. Therefore, the shifts in the simultaneous equilibrium are discussed under the following heads. A. Shifts in simultaneous equilibrium due to shifts in IS curve, LM curve remaining the same. IS schedule is drawn on the assumption of a given government expenditure. Whenever there is any change in the fiscal policy which is reflected in the government expenditure, IS curve will shift. When the government expenditure increases due to an upward change in the fiscal policy, the IS curve shifts outwards. This is explained in figure 4.5. In the figure, the initial IS curve is IS0 and the initial LM curve is LM0. The initial point of equilibrium is E0. The initial IS curve, IS0, is at a given level of government expenditure, say G0. When there is an increase in the government expenditure from G0 to G1, the IS curve shifts to the right from IS0 to IS1. This happens because with the increase in government expenditure, autonomous investment increases and causes a rightward shift in the investment curve. With the rightward shift in the investment curve, the level of savings increases, which through the multiplier effect increases the income in the economy from OY0 to OY1, and thus new equilibrium is restored. In the same way, the downward shift in the IS curve causes a downward shift in the equilibrium level when LM curve remains the same. Shifts in simultaneous equilibrium due to shifts in LM curve, IS curve remaining the same. When the IS curve remains constant and there is a shift in the LM curve, the equilibrium also shifts. This occurs because of the changes in the money supply. When the money supply increases, the LM curve shifts outwards to the right, and thus, if IS curve is the same, then the equilibrium point will shift to the right. This is explained through the figure 4.6. LM0 and IS0 are the initial curves, and E0 is the initial equilibrium point. When the money supply increases, the LM curve shifts from LM0 to LM1, and IS curve remaining the same at IS0, the equilibrium point shifts to the right from E0 to E1. This causes a downward shift in the equilibrium rate of interest and an increase in the level of income. In the same way, the downward shift in the LM curve causes an upward shift in the equilibrium point when IS curve remains the same. Shifts in simultaneous equilibrium due to simultaneous shifts in IS and LM curves. Figure 4.7 shows the simultaneous shifts in the IS and LM curves. IS0 and LM0 are the initial curves, and E0 is the initial equilibrium point. Initially, when the government expenditure increases, the IS curve shifts to the right from IS0 to IS1. LM curve has not yet shifted in figure 4.7. Through the multiplier effect, rate of interest also increases. Since rate of interest is inversely related with the level of investment, therefore, the level of private investment will decrease. This adverse impact of the changes in government expenditure on the private investment is called as crowding out effect. If now the LM curve shifts outwards from LM0 to LM1 due to increase in money supply, then the new equilibrium will be at E2, which will be attained at the earlier level of rate of interest, that is OR0. Thus, at E2 level, the resultant increase in income Y0, Y2 is greater than the increase in income when only the IS curve shifts Y0, Y1. Thus, when money supply and government expenditure increase, only then the economy can realize the maximum increase in income. Hence, this simultaneous shift shows the significance of both the monetary and fiscal policies. This is also to be kept in mind that to get maximum increase in income, the shift in IS and LM curves should be equal. So students, let's now summarize what we have learned in this module. Thus, in this chapter, we have learned how the weaknesses of the Keynesian system were overcome. The IS and LM model helps us in the simultaneous determination of the equilibrium in the goods market and in the money market. Such a model helps in the simultaneous determination of the levels of rate of interest and the level of income while ensuring equilibrium in both the markets. Thank you.